Maverick. Noun, unusual person. A visionary, leader, go-getter, an independent thinker. They see the vision for their life and pull that future towards them with an unyielding belief that things can and must be better. They achieve what most won't. Innovative, influential, daring, and direct, with a remarkably high tolerance for taking calculated risk. A foe to the status quo. This is Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks. Your host, Neil Timmins, has been involved with over $300 million in real estate transactions. He's a published author, commercial property investor, and real estate syndicator. This show is for those who want to learn how to earn passive income through real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Neil Timmins.
On this episode of Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks, I sit down with Joe LaFleur to uncover investing in multifamily real estate today.
Hey Mavericks, this is Ava Baukamp, and this episode of Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks is brought to you by Legacy Impact Investors. We are an industrial investment firm located in cash flow country, the Midwest. We strive to shield off risk and beat inflation, all while producing predictable cash flow. We curate real estate investment opportunities for busy professionals and other real estate investors seeking passive income. To learn more about what we do and connect with me, go to www.legacyimpactinvestors.com.
Welcome to Passive Real Estate Investing with Mavericks, where we provide actionable steps for you to grow your passive income and become job optional. During today's episode, you're going to get to discover the ins and outs of investing in multifamily today. For those of you who are new, I'm your host, Neil Timmins. I love passive income from real estate. Now, before I introduce you to today's Maverick, I want to make a request that at any point during the show you like what you hear, well, give us a thumbs up. Be certain to subscribe to the show. Never miss a valuable episode. If you love what you hear, give us a written review. Plus, be sure to look at the description of the episode. We packed it with thousands of dollars in free resources. Today, we've got the privilege to learn from a person who is in multifamily brokerage for 15 plus years, has brokered nearly $500 million with a B, $500 million in apartments. I would describe today's Maverick as someone who's passionate about world travel. Today's Maverick, Joe LaFleur. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited you're here. Hey, say for the audience's sake, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
So Joe LaFleur here in Orlando, Florida. Been in the multifamily brokerage business for just over a decade. Did over $500 million in transactions. That was over 250 deals we've done, and been doing that in Central Florida since 2009. You can find all our deals, all our info, everything about us at 100units.com, 100units.com. It's super easy to remember, so there's no confusion. And that's where you can find all about us.
Tell me about the very first property that you brokered.
The very first one. All right. So I remember going over there. This is the very, very first deal we did. I rolled over to the property and I had to negotiate with the homeless gentleman who was using it as his personal residence to get him to move so I could take some pictures. I still know where that property is. Every time I drive by Colonial, just west of Tampa Avenue, I know exactly where that property is. And it looks only slightly better today than it did over a decade ago. I think the same guy still lives there.
Was that a small multi? What was it?
It was a small office building.
All right. Yeah. That's incredible.
That was actually how I got into multifamily. People are like, how'd you get into multifamily? It's real easy. I tried to sell office buildings. Notice the word try.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually sell any.
Yeah. All right. Bring me current. Tell me about the most recent commercial transaction
deals we've been doing.
Yeah.
So 2022 was our best year ever. We did 143 million in transactions. That was over 43 deals. And then our friend Jay Powell decided he was mad and thought that was too many deals, so I should slow down. So then we've slowed down. Now we've done, so far this year, we've got 3 deals in contract closed, 2 of them, a small multi in Lakeland, that's in Polk County, halfway between Orlando and Tampa. And then we sold one 2 weeks ago. There's also a small multi-deal in the Daytona, which is over in the Volusia County markets.
Yeah. Tell me, but between your first deal with a homeless guy at the footstep, and then your most recent deals, there had to be a lot of things you learned in between those two. Just let's focus specifically on multifamily. What are the biggest things that you've learned in that multifamily space when it comes to brokering deals? And I'm going to follow that up with from the investment side and what you see, who's doing what.
I'm going to give you one big one is in the macro space. Is that our government actually wants us to have affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I didn't really click on in the beginning, that they actually go way out of their way to make certain that affordable housing exists. Like there's no other asset class that has Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, all backing properties.
Yep.
And the reason is our federal government wants us to have affordable housing, and that's one of the unique assets in the affordable housing space or in the multi-housing space. So as far as a macro universe, That was one thing. As far as brokering deals, the most important thing is that the properties are just a piece of dirt with bricks and sticks on top of it. It's all about the people. It doesn't matter what the property, people are always like, oh, the property that it's 100% about who owns it, who wants to buy it, who's willing to lend on it, and your relationship and ability to relate, understand what each one of those parties is looking to accomplish, and then find some version of a common ground that gets you a mutually beneficial outcome is where the magic happens of brokering deals.
You're telling me it's not just as easy as having the highest offer and that's it.
Well, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. But you got to get to the closing table, and certainly things have changed over the course of the last year relative to getting the closing table. Is it fair to say that the certainty of close far exceeds the highest price at this point in terms of a priority?
See, that's an excellent point. The answer to your question is depends. That is 100% up to the seller. To me, it's important because, I don't like to do work 3-4 times and get paid once.
Yep.
But you'll talk to one seller, and for them, they will rather roll the dice with 4 buyers. If they feel they're going to get a tip-top dollar, they will roll the dice. And what do they care? Like, I don't care. Take as long as you want. Like, you next.
Yeah.
But other ones, it is very important. And that's where it comes down to who you are dealing with and what their objectives are and what they're looking to accomplish, to make sure you can meld that up and then communicate that also with the buyers also. So that way they're on the same page and they understand the seller's motivation, what the seller's interested in. And so that way you can come to a mutually beneficial closing.
Right back to your point. It's a people business.
It is. It's like, yes, exactly. That's a big takeaway. And that doesn't matter what asset class you're in.
Sure.
You can be triple nets, whatever.
Yep.
It's all about the people who are buy them, the people who sell them, the people who lend on them, and being able to establish that relationship as to what they're looking to accomplish.
So you've done this for a long time. You've seen tons of general partners come in, buy a multitude of particular properties over the course of the last decade plus in your career here. Say there's got to be a handful of general partners, I say syndicators, people who come in and ultimately raise dollars and cents from passive investors. There's got to be some that are exceptional. They're home runs, not just in the deal, but I'm talking about the way they approach a deal, their underwriting process, the way they communicate with you. And there's got to be some people who probably don't quite live up to that standard. Maybe tell me, of the people who get it right, what types of things from your perspective are they doing well? And the people who get it wrong, where are they falling short?
So the people who are getting it right, number one, they're very transparent and know how to execute. That's been one of the number one things. I had so many people come into the market like, oh yeah, I want to get on the list. How do I get on the buyer's list? How do I get to know, the deals? How are you going to call me when deals come up? Number one is execute. Do exactly what you say you're going to do over and over. That separates the good operators, the good syndicators. They know what they can deliver on. before they start. They're not out there, trying to swing for the fences and squint when some NOI doesn't really work right. And, don't worry, I'll be able to raise extra money halfway through this deal. They already know exactly what they can do, and they know the expectations for their investors because they're doing the exact same thing on the passive investing side. They're very clear with their investors right up front. This is what's reasonable to expect. This is what I'm going to deliver to you with this property. And then they go out to the property, and then here's what I can deliver to you, Mr. Seller. I can deliver this. I can do X. I can pay this price. I can deliver in this time frame. I'm going to go out and get this financing package in order to make that happen. And obviously their goal is to be just slightly conservative on both of those so they can give a little bit better to each.
Yep. The people who are falling short outside of the opposite of what you just said. Are there any unique or maybe stories that come up where you're going, these people they don't execute, they're just getting it plain wrong?
The ones that are in that space, and this would be things to avoid, would be if you cannot raise the funds, if you don't have the investor pool behind you, or if you are raising from an investor pool that's looking for value add deals and you're out trying to buy stabilized deals and then trying to hopefully somehow meld them together through some magic potion, that's over and over. And what it comes down to when you see that happen is someone who is trying very hard to make something happen and not able to deliver. They're not able to execute on what they said they can do. And you'll find that is a reputation that precedes you. Because this universe is not that big. Right. There's not that many guys doing deals here. There's not that many owners. You're only talking about under 1,000 owners here. And of the professional brokers who are in that space who are actually good, you're talking a handful.
Right.
And you get to know who is able to execute and who is not. And that's one of the things that sponsors or syndicators who are out raising deals are looking to buy properties. It's important to not just know that you've put together a nice package that you're presenting with your offer. Here's my offer. Here's the funds I have. But there's also what you would say, what others are saying about you. Because that seller is going to ask, have you ever dealt with this person before? And if you have, what was your experience? Or do you know somebody who has dealt with them? What was their experience? Did they say they were going to do X and actually do X? Or did they say they were going to do X and then didn't? And those are things that you won't see in writing. You won't see on anywhere. You probably won't even get told about it. But that is your reputation precedes you, especially once you get into a market. It doesn't take long to be known.
Right.
And people will definitely attenuate or attribute attributes to you based on your execution. And we see sponsors who come in and they can't execute or they retrade. I've got tons of deals. The seller straight up asked me like, hey, is this guy going to retrade? And I'm, yes, because every deal they did, they retraded.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the number one signs that someone's going to retrade is when they tell you they're giving you a contract and they tell you, I never retrade.
Isn't that the truth?
Like the second you hear that,
yeah,
you can go make a large wager how this is going to go.
Yes, exactly. I'm honest. Believe me. Yeah. So for the audience's sake, in case you don't know what retrade is, it's when you go under contract, you're going to go through due diligence, and then somewhere along the line of your due diligence is that you now have a new magic number. And in some cases, Joe, it's fair to say that it's warranted. Oftentimes during due diligence, there are things that get uncovered or discovered that were not known to either the buyer or the seller. That's fair.
Or they were not disclosed.
Or they were not
I found things that it's like, wait a second, how'd you not, you didn't know that?
Yeah. Yeah. So in some cases, it's fair to say from your perspective that some cases a retrade is warranted, and for many cases a retrade is unwarranted.
Yes. When you come back and One guy tried to retrade because of the building age. Oh, well, after we did our due diligence, we did our inspection. It turned out this building was built in 69. So yeah, I need $100,000 off. That kind of thing is just 100% a no-go. It's just a waste of everyone's time. Or come in and talk about how the parking lot has potholes in it. So I need to if you didn't know the parking lot had potholes before you put the offer in, what are we joking? Like, what were you doing?
Right. Yeah.
So there are times when you find things out. Like we found out polybutylene inside piping that somebody didn't know about. Like that's something can be a surprise.
Right.
Or I actually had one, we had it under contract. We were closing in a week and a tree fell through the roof. Surprise.
Right. Yep. You're exactly right. The alternative to that is there are people who their business model is to retrade. They come in, they have a very aggressive price from the get-go, knowing that they're not ever going to close on that price. And sooner or later, they're going to hit you with a new number and see if they can't work that seller down because they've extended that seller 30, 60, 75, 90 days, whatever it is. They bought a lot of time. And now they're hoping the seller will just relent and get to close because they don't want to go through that process again.
And in their defense, that strategy does work on some occasion.
Sure.
So it's not like that. It's not like people are doing that because they're nutty people.
Right.
I've seen it work. Yeah. I've had sellers call me, oh yeah, so-and-so's under contract. I'm like, oh, good luck, man.
Right.
And 60 days later, they're like, man, he beat me up and I went ahead, I needed X, whatever, and went ahead and took it.
Yep.
And then other times it's just a terrible use and they just tell you to go fly a kite.
Yeah.
Because
correct.
They have alternatives and then no, this is not what we're doing.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. At the end of the day, you have branded yourself with a reputation.
Yeah. But from then on, when an offer shows up from you, it might as well just say retrade on it. You might as well say, yeah, I'm going to ask for $250,000 less than whatever number you put on there.
Right.
Before you even start. And some of those retrades actually occur because the syndicator is not being clear with their investors. So they go out to their investor pool during their due diligence period and they're bringing in the investments and the expectation of returns, whether it's the preferred return or hurdle rate or whatever they agreed to end up offering, is higher than they had anticipated. And then they come back and try to push that off on the property or the seller. And that's what it comes down to. The good syndicators, they know and they're very clear with their investors up front. This is the rate I'm going to deliver to you. I'm going to do X, I'm going to do Y, whether it's a 3-year hold, 5-year hold, an infinite hold, whatever the deal is. Right. I'm going to deliver an 8% preferred. Whatever it is, they're very clear up front with their investors, and their investors are looking for that. So then they know during the entire process when they're putting the property under contract, this is what I need to deliver on, and this is the plan I need to execute on to get there.
Talk to me about borrowing. Interest rates have changed dramatically over the course of the last 18 months, plus or minus. What are you seeing? What are people doing from a borrowing standpoint? Fannie, Freddie, agency-backed debt looks very different than that in any other asset class, as you touched on from the beginning. The government wants affordable housing, and as a result, you've got agency debt available at better rates, at better terms than what you can borrow in any other asset class. So what are you seeing taking place from a borrowing standpoint? What are the buyers you're working with? What do they typically end up doing? And what do you think is the best route to go right now for folks?
That's a good. I want to give a quick background in regard to that topic. Right. So why this is important for the listeners to know is if you go back 2007, 8, 9, 10, the lending entire market froze. You weren't getting a CMBS deal done. You weren't getting a bank deal done. It was no life companies. You were done getting lending. It was cash or nothing, with the exception of the multifamily space, because you still had Fannie, Freddie, HUD back there lending. Were their loans as attractive as they were before? No, but they did exist, which is completely different than if you owned a retail building, an office building, an industrial building. Those loans were just non-existent. In the space of multifamily, the vast majority, so in the space I play in, which is 5 to 150 unit deals, 65% of our lenders just disappeared, but we still had those Fannie Freddie backups. And every investor who invests in multifamily always has that. And that's the same if you go to April, May, June 2020. Banks were on ice, CMBS, ICE, life companies were barely moving. Nobody knew what was going to happen. There were a number of deals that we executed with Fannie and Freddie. Were they the best terms? No. Were they more expensive than they would have been even 60 days earlier? Absolutely. But you could execute with them because they're always there. And right now, in the space we're in right now, we're seeing that they're there, readily available. Fannie, Freddie, and HUD, they're readily available to lend. Now, they are looking very closely, as they should, at the debt coverage ratio. That is their constraining factor. A lot of people talk about loan to value, what loan to value can I get this property. The loan to value is irrelevant.
Yep.
The constraining factor is the debt coverage ratio. You need to know what market you're in, what kind of loan you're going after, and then you just go through the NOI and say, okay, it's 125, it's 13, 135, 14, and that is your loan proceeds that you're going to get on this property. Now, where we have seen some higher leverage deals kick in is the banks that have gone through their issues with FDIC. Mm-hmm. They're coming back. They're strong. Mm. We have got some aggressive banks right now that have lent in surprising terms up to 1:1 debt coverage ratios with the idea that, hey, here's a clean story of how we're going to take the rents from whatever it is, $1,200 a month, and we're going to push it to 14. Here's our plan. But they're lending on occasion. Now, this is full recourse debt, but they are active, and you can get that kind of debt from banks right now, which is really amazing to me because for a little while, there was no bank debt going on for a few months.
Right. Well, that tells you
they're coming back in the market, and the ones that are strong and have gotten the green light from FDIC, they've looked at their bucket, they have plenty of room for multifamily. They are aggressive.
Yeah, that's incredible. What are the terms that you're typically seeing on a bank deal like that? What are you typically seeing? A 5-year deal? Are they extending that?
The vast majority of bank deals are 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years typically in the fixed and the fives, and then
and you're going to be mid sixes for interest rate.
Okay, yeah, and one of the government sponsored entities, you can go much longer, both from a fixed rate standpoint and then much longer from an amortization standpoint.
Oh, Fannie has some delightful products. So the vast majority of our deals would fall under the affordability sector of Fannie. So Fannie has some full term 10 years, full term IO.
Yeah.
They've got some products that also are fully amortized. Like they have a smorgasbord of products depending on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
The one thing to keep in mind in that space is if you are not sure your intention is to keep it for 10 years, it's going to be very expensive.
Yes.
To change your mind halfway and be like, it would be cool if I sold this.
Yeah.
Then you have to go through a very difficult process of finding a buyer who wants to assume your debt. And that can be a real adventure.
Yeah. And the reason I brought this up to talk so much about this is for you, the listener, the passive investor, who just to educate you so that you've got a context of when you're looking at a deal, you can ask the sponsor, because today, in my opinion, evaluating the debt is almost as important as evaluating the deal. You want to understand that debt side of that structure, and apartment side gives you so much flexibility from what kind of debt you can actually put on the deal. So it's great.
That's an interesting one. When you're looking at a investment as a passive investor, I would go down a checklist of most important thing. Number one, vet the sponsor.
That's right.
The piece of like the property you're investing in or the fund you're investing in doesn't mean nan if that dude's about to take your money and run off to Hawaii or Aruba or Russia or invest it all in Bitcoin.
Right.
Like that's number one. Once you've done that, then you're actually looking at the deal. Once you've done that, you should know what their debt is.
Yep.
And that's whether it's today or in any time in the future. And the thing to be cognizant of, if you are a passive investor, and they come and say, oh yeah, this is our first time we're ever doing a deal together. And we're going to get a 2-year bridge with no rate cap because we're for sure going to be able to exit this in 2 years. You better be very confident in somebody because they're going to be staring down a bullet in 23 months after the day they close. And that's a scary place to be looking.
23 months is going to evaporate like that. Yeah.
So
what do you...
Fortunately, we got some people who are learning that exact lesson as we speak.
You're exactly right about that. Yes.
They're learning that those 3-year bridge and one extension with no rate cap. And it's going to be an interesting time on how people manage through that.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a number of them who they sent the property operation met or exceeded their pro formas. But what they did not put into it was the change in the cost of debt.
Yeah. No, they didn't stress test the deal. They executed on their business plan for, rent rates have gone up, especially in your neck of the woods. I mean, dramatically. So you can execute on a business plan, but what if, right? It's all this like what if ancillary items that just didn't get, there was no accounting for. What if any of these things happen? And I'm not talking to the extreme. I mean, we're not talking about what if a pandemic happens. We're talking about what if interest rates change, like not, pretty significant in a light item that should just be in the budget, right? To stress test that thing.
Ooh, you just talked about the pandemic. That's an interesting because your listeners are all nationwide.
Sure.
So state by state, the way that the governing bodies handled that is completely different.
You're right.
That's one of the unique assets of being here in Florida versus in California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois. We had a very different take on that reaction.
You're right.
So to give you an idea here, there were no evictions. There was a moratorium on evictions for 90 days. So by the end of summer of 2020, we were back to evictions. And that is a massive difference. And if you're in this space, you understand it's very important to know the laws. That is one of the things when you are looking at what market to invest in with your syndicator is what are those laws and how do they lean? And it's important to understand that as a risk factor during operations.
You're absolutely right. Joe, tell me, what are you most excited about this year?
Ooh, that's awesome. So this is a year of, number one, I have doubled our marketing. And the reason I'm doing that is right now, transaction velocity is down. In the multifamily space, it's down, give or take 60% in our space. I feel like a lot of competitors are going to take that time, relax. They're going to start going to the beach more often. They're going to start golfing more often. Yep. And if you look at trends over time, real estate is a cyclical business. It's in the first time this has happened. I've been around long enough to see them go up and down. I got super lucky. I got started in 08 and 09 and watched, make no money for 2 years, just worked and worked and worked.
Right.
This is the time that those who are very good at what they do pick up market share.
Mm-hmm.
Because others are getting beat. It's hard. I mean, literally, you're going to work twice as much and make half the money. Like, just get on board with it. But this is when you pick up market share because you're establishing those relationships as the one who was there during the entire issue. So those owners who are slogging it out and we're talking about selling and now they can't, and you're there helping them. You're helping them. Okay, you're not selling your building. Great. What can I do to help you? Do you need debt? Do you need, here's some introductions. Do you need a better insurance quote? How can I help you?
Right.
They're the ones that are going to be there later on, 2 years from now, when it is time to exit.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a brilliant move.
I hope so. We're going to find out in 2 years.
You'll find out. It's only
maybe I should have gone play golf. I don't know.
I agree with you. I think back to the 2008 era. And those who survived have thrived over the course of the last decade. And it's largely because the relationships, the things that you get and put in place that you establish and establish as a leader in the market, it pays off handsomely in the long run.
It's one of those things where the people when you're going through hard times and they're there helping you, it's hard for somebody in the fair weather friends show back up.
Correct.
Because they remember who was there helping them out when things were tough. So when things really shut down, so 2020, rolling into March 22, we had 17 deals in contract. By the end of April, we had none because the lending shut down. Right. Everyone knew it. That was it.
Right.
What we transitioned to very quickly is actually using our Matterport and photography departments to help our clients rent units, because they were trying to rent units and all of a sudden they had residents who didn't want to be in a physical space with one of their leasing agents.
Oh, right.
So we rotate. We have Matterport, we have photography. We just turn drone videos. We turned them loose, and I went to all of our clients and said, "Look, we're here to help you. You need to rent units so you can survive."
Right.
How can we help?
Wow. Let's do this. I want to move on to the final segment, what I call the final four. What do you think holds most passive investors back from hitting their personal next level, whatever that would happen to be? And maybe I'll apply the question, for maybe it's active investors that you most interact with. What holds them back from hitting their personal next level?
The first thing is they are unclear what that is. It is incredibly easy to go day by day, kind of do a little more, do something the same. We go through, this is just as humans in general, whether you're investing in real estate or doing anything else or playing golf or raising your kids or whatever, rolling through, and 95+% of your day is on autopilot without ever thinking about the impacts of each one of those things. So having clarity, if you do nothing else but just pick a goal, even if it was just randomly picked, you will end up doing more toward that goal. And even if it turns out to be the wrong goal, and in a year, you're like, you know what, I'm changing my mind, I'm going to do something else. You will have more movement in 6 to 12 months than you will have any idea. And clarity of just having an objective. If your objective is, I want to invest in real estate, great. Write that down, put it on your phone so you see it every day.
Yep.
I'm going to invest in real estate. Awesome. I'm going to buy a property. Awesome. Look at it every single day. And the shocking movement you will have toward that will absolutely amaze you.
What are you passionate about outside of real estate?
Passionate about? Elaine, my wife and I, we like to travel. Just got back from the Netherlands 2 weeks ago. And
nice.
Early in this year, we did a cool cruise where we went from Hong Kong, went through the bay, and then went up the coast of Taiwan, and then up the coast of Japan to Tokyo. And I have a personal thing about learning and experiencing new cultures and how they interact with their own economies. And to me, it's very interesting to see, just to give you an idea, in Hong Kong, it turns out when you look at and it's incredible, the multifamily they have there.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
The vast majority, it's 65% is government housing. And it is given to you as government housing. They's talking 700, they use meters, but anyway, approximately 700 square foot, what we would call a 700 square foot 2-bedroom apartment, except on average, they have 6 people there.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Hong Kong is incredible. Dense population too. Stacked very high. Your favorite book?
Oh, favorite book. At the moment, I'm reading Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, which I found very helpful on focusing on what you're looking to accomplish and how you can start increasing your time and moving toward more leveraged opportunities. Okay. If I was going real estate, I would go The Real Estate Game. That's a bill written back in, I want to say the 90s. Okay. Definitely worthwhile if you are in the space of real estate. And finally, one of the old school books, this was by Craig Hall, called The Real Estate Turnaround. This was actually in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it is amazing to go through that book and look at the processes and the ideas presented, where he would go to a group of investors, raise money, purchase a property, do renovations on it, and then either sell it or refinance it and pay back all his investors. The concepts from, that's going on, that's 40 something years ago.
Right.
Are still the same ideas today.
That's incredible. I'll pick that one up. That one I've not heard of, so I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. And by the way, Craig Hall, if you can check out Hall Wines over in Napa.
Oh, okay.
Excellent cab.
Oh, there you go. Excellent cab. It comes recommended. You look at that. You get a bonus with that book, huh?
Yes.
Joe, your favorite way to make an impact in the community?
Right now, we're putting a lot of effort behind the Homeless Coalition here in Orlando. We are having an increasing homeless population as rents have driven up, and people, we're looking for ways to help them, because housing is one of those fundamental things. Like when you look on my, hierarchy of needs, if you don't feel safe in a place to live in shelter, it's very difficult to move up anywhere.
Right.
And so for me, homeless is one of the things that we put effort behind and support.
That's great. Joe, it's been a great conversation. It's wonderful to hear your background, your story about transitioning from trying to sell offices to actually selling multifamily, and obviously, thriving in that world, and a lot tremendous tips and nuggets along the way from an investor standpoint, and learnings that you shared with us today. For people that want to find you, they want to follow you, and they want to connect with you, give it to me again. Where can they go? What should they do?
Best website is 100units.com, 100units.com. We got tons of resources. You click on the resources tab. You need any help in regards to anything in the world of multifamily, property managers, you need maintenance guys, you need contractors, you need lenders. It's in our space. We've got them all there. And also we're on all the social medias from, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're posting on LinkedIn on a regular basis. We got tons of excellent content that if you are looking to invest in that space of multifamily, I think you'll find very valuable. So both 100 Units and me personally, Joe LaFleur, on LinkedIn is probably the easiest place on the social medias.
Links are below in the show notes, everybody. Joe, thanks for your time.
Awesome.
To our listeners, pat yourself on the back. You guys have made it to the end of the show, and most people never finish what they start. If you receive value from today's show, be sure to share it on LinkedIn, your Facebook page, or your social media platform of choice. Subscribe to never miss a valuable episode in the future. And if you found value in today's episode, give us a thumbs up with a positive review. If there's a particular topic you'd like to hear about, well, I want to hear from you. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn. The link to my profile is below in the show notes. You can connect with me there for more valuable content.